Danny Trooper and the Forgotten Realms, Part 6. A different reality. It was another wonderful day in the office. Danny Trooper's shirt was sparkling white. His tie was in a Windsor knot, just how he liked it. He sat at his desk and tapped away at his computer. His boss, Mr. Jeepers, dressed in a fine business suit, walked out of his office into Dan's cubicle.
Trooper, remember, I need those updated reports on my desk by noon.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jeepers.
And remember, rule number 1, the golden rule. Never, ever open that desk drawer.
No, sir, Mr. Jeepers.
Good lad. You keep up this pace, and you'll make junior partner in what, 10 years?
10 years? That's like nothing at all.
Danny resumed tapping away on his computer. Nothing made him happier. His coworker Thor entered. His shirt and tie still didn't fit him very well, but they probably would eventually over time. Thor carried a stack of printer paper with him and brought it over to the printer, holding it high above his head proudly.
I have returned.
We can see that. And we can hear that. In fact, the whole office building can hear that.
Well, sorry, but I am just so excited.
And why is that?
Because I have obtained the ultimate prize.
The ultimate prize?
I have returned after facing great peril with the ever-necessary copy paper refill. Glorious!
Nobody celebrates getting office supplies like you do, Thor.
Well, it keeps a well-oiled office running smoothly, Dan. It keeps a well-oiled office running smoothly. Now, I'll just place the refill of paper into the machine.
Thor struggled to put the paper in the copying machine. Finally, he just jammed it in. Dan stared at him as Thor just grinned back and then coughed.
And now, to make those copies.
Thor pressed a button on the copier. Nothing happened.
Why? Why will you not copy for me, infernal machine? I have fed you what you needed, paper, but still you mock me.
Thor peered at the machine. Some electronic words on the face of it seemed to mock him.
What? What's this you say? Toner low? Toner low? What does that mean?
Thor slammed his fist into the copier.
I will never be free of the tortures of this infernal machine.
Thor, you switched to decap like I told you, right?
Yes.
Sheesh, and you're still like this. Maybe you need a nice herbal tea or something instead.
Mr. Jeepers came out of his office, his arms crossed, glaring a hole through Thor.
Thor, what did I tell you about assaulting the copier machine?
You told me that it wasn't out to free the dark elves of Melkeith, and that it was just for copying only.
And
not to make humorous pictures of my backside on the copier when no one is looking.
Because
nobody finds it humorous except me.
That's right. I can't believe I have to tell you again. My office, mister. Now! You know what we need to do.
Thor turned to Dan, a pleading look in his eyes.
Dan, help me!
No can do, big guy. You know Mr. Jeepers is the toughest out of all of us. That's why he's the boss.
Darn straight. Now get your non-copy machine plastering backside in my office right now, mister. You know what time it is?
No, not that. Anything but that.
That's right. It's time for a self-motivated improvement lifestyle exercise.
That's a mouthful, boss. Why don't you just use the acronym?
Smile as you insist. Time to smile, Thor. Time to smile.
Thor dragged into Mr. Jeeper's office against his very will.
No, I don't want to smile. I don't want to smile.
Oh, well, I'm sure that'll work out. Anyway, I can't worry about it. I've got to get these reports done.
The elevator to the office door opened again, and Dan's wonderful fiancée, Felicia, dressed fashionably as always, exited the elevator and bounced into Dan's cubicle.
Hi, honey.
Felicia kissed Dan on the cheek.
Felicia, what a surprise. I get, well, not really, since you're here at the office again, like you always are.
I know. You don't like me coming here and bothering you, but this is important, honey.
What could be more important than work? I mean, other than you, honey bun.
Thank you, sweetie pie. But it's pretty important. Guess who came for a visit?
Not Commander Nightshade again. He always shows up to tell those boring stories that don't make any sense. Or to throw him out after he's had too much to drink, too.
No. It's not Commander Nightshade. It's someone a lot more fearsome than that.
More fearsome than Commander Nightshade?
That's right. It's...
Who?
your mother.
The elevator door opened again, and this time, Patricia Trooper, Dan's mother, was the one who exited. She was dressed very fashionably and sauntered towards Dan in her very haughty way.
Hello, darlings.
Hello, Mother.
Patricia and Dan exchanged air kisses. Dan definitely didn't seem to enjoy it.
You're looking thin. Haven't you been eating?
Patricia turned to Felicia and glared at her.
Haven't you been feeding him?
I cook him everything he likes, all his favorite dishes. It's not my fault he likes to eat
The same thing every week. Just like clockwork. What can I say? I also have the same outfit to wear to work every day. You know, just like Albert Einstein. And Barack Obama, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, there's one thing that's clearly different between you and all of them, Dan.
What's that, Mother?
They were all successful.
Mother.
I mean, why are you wasting your time here? Being a, what? Junior analyst?
That's right. But someday I'm going to be the partner.
Patricia rolled her eyes.
Well, dream high. You always say dream high. At least your father had enough sense to go into business and strike it rich after he left the military.
What did you say?
Your father got out of the Air Force and thankfully became an executive in the defense industry. Gave us the life we always wanted. Well, at least the life I always wanted.
Mom. Dad died.
Dan, that's not funny.
What?
Your father isn't dead. We just had dinner with him and your mother last week. Remember? You complained so much about having to eat something different for a change.
I did?
The suit you wore was ill-fitting, I'm surprised you even know how to tie your tie correctly.
I'm sorry, Mother.
There, Dan. I didn't mean to upset you. I suppose some people are meant for higher power and others aren't.
A defeated Dan sat back down at his desk.
Right. I don't want higher power. I mean, I want a promotion someday, but I don't want higher power.
Felicia decided to change the subject.
Well, anyway, your mother and I were talking about the wedding.
I know you wanted to elope at one point, but how gosh. Of course, we're going to have a fabulous wedding for the both of you. No expense spared.
You should see my dress, Dan. I'm going to look just like an enchanted princess.
No, I don't want a princess.
Well, not a real princess, silly. But sometimes a girl's just gotta get her glamour on, you know? Your mother's taught me that at least.
This is wrong.
There's nothing wrong with living the life you're supposed to, Dan. After all, we all have to grow up.
Yes, I suppose you're right, but still, it seems like there's something else, something in my desk.
Dan tentatively reached for the desk drawer with all the keep-out tape and stickers on it. At that moment, Mr. Jeepers exited his office. Thor was behind him.
Trooper, hands off that desk drawer. You know it's top secret.
Dan pulled his hand back.
Yes, sir. Sorry, Mr. Jeepers. Sorry, sir.
Jeepers whirled back on Thor.
And you, keep smiling. Keep smiling.
Thor kept his fingers in his mouth.
I'm sorry.
You keep that up, and maybe you'll be worthy again of someday, my boy. But no guarantees.
It was at that moment when Mr. Jeepers saw Patricia.
Oh my goodness. Patricia, Trooper? Here? At my office?
Mr. Jeepers rushed over and kissed Patricia's outstretched hand.
You honor us with your presence.
Yes, well, I suppose it was good that you gave my son a job when no one else would.
Well, at first he fought the system tooth and nail, Mrs. Trooper. Tooth and nail. But eventually, he learned. He learned to buckle down and accept reality. Isn't that right, my boy?
Yeah. Reality.
Life's not about adventure, after all. It's about precision and efficiency. Like the clock. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, rest on the weekend, and then back at it again on Monday. Forever and ever. Amen.
That's beautiful, Mr. Jeepers.
Thank you, Miss Winters. And yes, your wedding may prove a momentary distraction to him, but after that, you'll be there to fulfill your duty as well, correct?
Yes, I'll make Dan a happy home, so when he returns every day, he won't have any worries. And he can go back to work every day, every week, refreshed and ready to do his best.
Good girl.
Well, I suppose if that's his lot in life, that's his lot in life. I suppose we all find our place, don't we?
We all find our place.
Mr. Odinson.
We all find our place.
Dan stood up, putting his hands to his ear.
Stop it!
Dan, what's wrong? Isn't this what you always wanted?
No, this is wrong. Something's wrong. This isn't what I wanted.
Well, make up your mind, son. After all, we don't have all eternity, do we?
Except we do, Mrs. Trooper. If all remains as it should, then nothing can harm you. You just need to stay the course, boy. Stay the course.
Stop saying that! You're trying to trap me. What's in this drawer?
Nothing that concerns you. Now get back to work. The reports. Order must be followed.
Shut up! What's in the drawer?
Nothing. You mind me, Trooper. You mind Jeepers.
Dan couldn't stand it any longer. Despite Mr. Jeepers' warnings, he tore all the keep-out tape and stickers from the forbidden drawer. Slowly, tentatively, he reached in it and pulled out a sword. But not just any sword. It was the legendary sword of King Arthur himself, Excalibur. Dan stared at it as everyone else around him seems to be blinded by the light coming from it.
Oh, that infernal light. Hey.
I know this.
Dan, enough of this. You mind your mother. You mind.
But Dan turned. He accidentally impaled her with a sword.
Oh,
Mother!
son, you've made me come undone.
No, it was an accident. None of this was supposed to happen.
Patricia's face shimmered and seemed to change a bit. Just a bit. Right in front of Dan's eyes.
Knew you would break the rules, young trooper. I knew you couldn't be trapped forever.
Who are you? You're not...
No, I'm not. I just look like everyone's mother.
Patricia, who was actually Queen Star, collapsed to the floor. Dan looked around, no longer shocked. Jeepers, Felicia, and Thor slowly snapped back into what they thought was reality and began to circle him cautiously.
Stay back.
Dan, it was just an accident. We know that. Put down the sword. Put down the sword, and none of this has to happen.
What are you talking about? It happened. It happened.
Just put down the sword, Mr. Trooper. Your mother can be restored. Oh, yes, she can. But you just need to take a break. Learn to smile, and all will be right as rain.
Look what it did for Reed.
Dan, our wedding, our life together, our children. Don't ruin that for us.
It's all a lie. You're a lie.
It's not a lie. We love you, Dan. We just want what's best for you.
We just want what's best for you.
Thor grabbed Dan in a bear hug from behind. Dan somehow just barely managed to hang on to the legendary sword that was in his hand.
Thor. Crushing me.
Just drop the sword, Dan. Drop the sword and everything goes back to what it's supposed to be. We all want it to be what it's supposed to be. Hey, do you know what day it is? Right, it's Tuesday. You know what that means? Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday is Taco Tuesday, Dan.
I eat tacos.
And stomped on Thor's foot. The Lord of Thunder howled in pain. And held his foot in agony.
Ah, my Oxford. These cost $100, foul villain.
Mr. Jeepers slowly moved toward Dan.
Careful, Mr. Trooper. Careful. You don't want to defy the natural order of things. Order must be preserved.
Mr. Jeepers rushed forward, but Dan hit him with the hilt of the sword, and the felinoid went down.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jeepers. I'm sorry.
Dan turned and found the love of his life, Felicia slowly advancing on him. He pointed the sword at her, and she took a step back.
Stay back.
Dan, what are you going to do? Stab me like you stabbed your own mother?
I didn't stab my mother.
I love you, Dan. I was made for you. Put down the sword and we'll have the fairy tale wedding. The fairy tale ending you always wanted. We'll live happily ever after.
I don't want to live happily ever after.
He raised his sword high and brought it down on his desk, splitting it in two. A flash of light blinded everyone as the explosion was heard. Then all was dark. When the smoke cleared, Dan, Felicia, Jeepers, and Thor all found themselves back where they were before, the land of the dead.